Welcome here. I'm Ashley Wood, host of the Line podcast and founder of Align Within. You come from the stars and you're planted in the earth to grow. The energetic frequency of the universe, Mother Earth, and your entire soul history runs within you. This is your line, and it connects you to your Akashic records. Through your line, you're receiving messages of guidance and support so you can learn how to trust yourself, love yourself, and guide yourself. Join me here every week to learn more about your line, the Akashic records, and your soul, as well as the channel teachings I receive from the Pinnacle, a group of Pleiadian energy that I work with in my records. Thanks so much for being here and enjoy the show. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Thank you for being here, and thank you for sharing some time with me. Maybe you are cooking, maybe you're walking, maybe you're driving, maybe you're in bed. Whatever you're doing, thank you so much for inviting me along for the ride. We are in it now. Do you feel it? And when I say in it, I mean the full-on energy. We have gone through the new moon in Taurus, which was on May 11th. That opened up the portal for the eclipse season, the energetic portal. Mercury is now in its shadow. It entered its shadow on Saturday, May the 15th, which means we are in the energy of Mercury retrograde. Jupiter entered Pisces on May 13th, which brings magic to our lives. We are in that energy as well. And in today's episode, my very dear friend, Leslie Galbraith, who you know and love, she's been on the show a couple of times already, is going to break it all down for us and really explore what these universal activations are delivering us during the next 6 weeks. Is it 6 weeks? Maybe 7? I haven't counted. I personally found the new moon in Taurus to be pretty intense. It opened a lot for me, but I was incredibly grateful for the experience. What happened was I started the day with this pulsating third eye. It was just pulsing like crazy. It wouldn't stop. It was so distracting and so irritating and even annoying. My eyes were irritated. My face was irritated. My head felt so much pressure. Everything was just irritated. And as a result, I felt incredibly irritated and cranky. And I just didn't feel good. And then when I started to realize, oh, this is an activation, this is bringing in a lot of energy for me so that I can understand what this eclipse season is going to be like for me, all of the energy moved into my neck and my upper back. And it got so tense and so stiff that I could barely move my neck. I was in so much pain. And at that point, I was completely confused. I'm like, why am I so sore? What's going on? Why do I feel this way? And so that night I went into the Akashic records. I had a bath, very new moon in Taurus, but also Taurus season. I've been in the bath every single night. I just can't get enough. I light candles. I go in the records. I journal. I give myself Reiki. I send Reiki to friends. It's just my sanctuary and I need it. I really need it. I noticed the difference within myself and my sleep when I'm not doing that right now. But anyway, I went in the bath and I opened my records and I asked, why do I have so much tension in my neck? Why am I in so much pain right now? And I was told I was storing fear. I was storing fear in my body. And I know exactly what the fear was about. It was my eclipse season preview, essentially, of what I'm working with. It was all ego. It was all fear. My ego pulling me down, my ego keeping me in old patterns. And it makes sense because I'm a Scorpio South node. And in the new moon in Taurus, which is my North node, my Scorpio was scrambling around, trying to control the show, control obsessive nature, all of the dark side of Scorpio was coming up and coming out. And when I understood what was going on, I was like, okay, I understand. I get it. It was like everything was illuminated to me. And I understand in every area of my life how I can like compartmentalize all of the different components in my life, how this comes into these different parts of my life. I understand it. And so I journaled about it. And I wrote everything out. I wrote out how I feel within this energy, not specific examples or specific scenarios or people or anything like that, just myself, how I navigate through the energy, how I feel it within myself when it comes up within me, and how I am going to work with it and grow through it, and how I'm going to use the energy of this time, these universal activations, to support me in growing through it. And then the next day on May the 12th, when the moon was still new, it was still the same energy. When I woke up, I did a lot of Reiki on myself. I cleared it, but then I felt so much better, in such alignment, and also really empowered for the next weeks ahead, for this eclipse season, for this energy portal that we're in from now until June the 12th. And so I invite you to do the same. I invite you to, in addition to the line activation questions and journal prompts that you'll hear at the end of the episode, to journal out how you're feeling right now, energetically, what's going on, emotionally, what's going on, what's coming up for you. And then on June the 24th, look back on it and celebrate your growth. Because if you even take the intention right now, set the intention, allow yourself the awareness to see where are you at right now, you are already opening up for growth. You are already opening up for messages. You're already opening up for your soul to evolve tremendously over the next few weeks ahead. So that's a fun little eclipse activity for you to do. And so exciting. I cannot believe that I'm sharing this with you, but it is time. Activate the Line, Know Your Soul is now available for pre-sale. It's here. It's time. If you've been listening to this show since the beginning of January, then you know that this workshop started to channel through me in January, but it took its sweet time, as beautiful things do take time to come through. I definitely have learned that when you try to force something, it doesn't happen. But when you allow the divine timing, it just comes exactly when it needs to. The workshop is ready. It is ready for you. And it is absolutely our deepest, most potently powerful, celestial, empowering, I said that, inspiring workshop we have. Brand new material. Everything is new. And you get to know yourself on a soul level in a more intimate way than you most likely do now. I say this because as I created the workshop over the past few months and went through this content myself, lived it, experienced it, I have transformed. Like, I feel like a different person. I even looked at my face from January and I feel like my face looks different. My eyes look different. Like, everything feels different. In this workshop, you will learn where your soul is from in the sky. You will learn who your soul family are and how you have connected with them on this earth plane. You'll know about your soul contracts. You'll know about your soul agreements. You will learn your purpose, your gifts, why you're on the earth, this physical plane in this body at this time. You will learn how to receive in your dreams. You'll learn who the people are that come into your dreams and why they're there. You'll learn how to protect yourself from nightmares, but also how to make peace with nightmares and what that means. You will learn how to understand energy in your physical body, similar to how I worked through my sore neck and how I released that pressure and that pain just from making connections and understanding my messages. You will learn so much more. You will learn what it is like to have a deep soul connection to yourself on this physical plane. You'll learn how your soul wants to grow and evolve and heal in this life. So much. There is so much in this workshop. It is packed, and you will activate your heart for more love. You will open yourself up for more love and more connection and more understanding, a deeper understanding of your celestial self. When I first began channeling this workshop through the Pinnacle, shared with me how revolutionary this work is at this time, because we are evolving so quickly as energetic beings, as our technology evolves through this time, age of Aquarius, like it's happening. Energetically, we are to be evolving as well within our own awareness and our soul connection. And so that's why this work is so, so important. And we have our workshop on pre-sale from now until May 31st. You can save 30% off of the workshop price. It's going to go live on June the 1st. And then the workshop will be full price. If you want to save 30% and get really excited to do this deep dive soul work during this energetically heightened time, especially Jupiter and Pisces, like what a time to do soul work. So aligned and beautiful. I wanted to say I couldn't have planned it better myself, but my highest self planned this. So thanks, highest self. There will be a link in the show notes to the sales page so you can purchase. Don't worry about a discount code. Exactly as you buy it is the 30% off price. It's already handled and taken care of for you. I'm so excited. I'm so excited to share this with you. It is also exciting because it's the most unique soul workshop out there. I have not seen anything in the digital space like this. It is unique. It is brand new, and it is just for you. Okay, let's get into this episode, my conversation with Leslie Galbraith. I hope you enjoy this, and I'll see you on the other side. Leslie Galbraith, you are back. I'm so happy to have you here. My sister, my friend, my soul sister, soul connection. And I know our audience, our community just loves you as well. The last time you were here was February, which, I mean, it wasn't that long ago, but it also feels like light years away, like 2021. So interesting. I feel like I say in every single episode that I don't understand time anymore and how time's moving. It just doesn't make sense in my human brain. But February, a couple months ago, a lot has happened since. Energetically, astrologically, like we've all gone through so many shifts since. How has 2021 been for you? What is this energy like for you?
Oh, thank you for having me again. And greetings to everyone in the community. I'm always so happy to be on the show and talk about astrology and the energy. And just what you said, like time, I have this like real mantra now that as far as time goes, it's only right now.
Yes, me too. That's
Like
exactly like the
last
present.
week,
That's it.
months ago, next year, I just kind of have like released so much of like that. And I just have to keep always bringing myself back to it's just right now. And
Yeah.
that's all. And that's all it is. And so that's so important what you said, like, because yeah, February, it's like, well, today we're recording this May 6th is like, whoa, February. Okay, that was only 2 months ago, but that feels like 2 years ago. But
Yes.
then, so everything is, so I just keep bringing myself back to what's happening right now. And I think this is important to navigate the energy. Here we are in May, it's Taurus season, right? Taurus is all full of sensuality and connecting to the earth and the five senses and what we eat, what we drink, what we wear, and this appreciation of nature and beauty. And how has 2021 been for me? Interesting. I think everybody can say interesting. Like it's been a lot, I've had some really big lessons just around trust, around things about what we kind of say is like not getting too far ahead of ourselves, just not focusing on the past stuff. Again, really a lot about being present. And this is so important. And with we're gonna, talk a little bit about Mercury in a second, but this is something I've really been thinking about a lot this year, which is about our mind and kind of like our thoughts and how they have wings. And it's always our choice about how we deal with anything.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So we
Mm-hmm.
have all of these things, there's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of things are changing, but our perspective on everything and our attitude is so powerful, that how we look at a situation that's happening is where, where we kind of, where the sweet spot is like, well, how do we react to it? So I think 2021 has really been teaching me to pay attention to how I am, or how my attitude is towards things that are happening to me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because we're living in this, like, in this really intensified energetic time, but we have the choice to decide, does something feel good or does something feel bad? It's not outside of us, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I think this is like something I've been really learning and understanding. It's all my point of view of how I look at it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
This has been a
Entirely.
big, big lesson. And just for an example, which the story, but we like to share the personal stuff. Like earlier in March, my husband and I actually got robbed. So a thief came in and stole our stuff. And when I had that first reaction, it was so intense. There's like vulnerability and all these things that come up. But then I stopped and I was like, what is this teaching me? What is the situation, bringing to my table, and how do I handle it? And so looking at the whole situation, you know, one of the things I was like complaining about was my smartphone, and how I was like way too much touching it. We got to work on it, but it was like obsessed a little bit too much with it. And I was complaining about it. And I was like, I hate this phone. I don't want it anymore. And then a thief came and took it. So first of all, I was like, wow, okay, thoughts are powerful. Number one. Number two, it helped me to reframe how I handle technology in my life. So even though it was like a super intense situation, it's kind of really like this theme, and kind of the theme I want to talk about today is, but how do you react to it?
Yeah,
Right.
totally. And what I have been learning, which is very similar, but also separate or different, I have felt so out of body so
Mm.
much this year. And thankfully, it's been Taurus season because that's my North Node. So I've been coming back into my body. But I
Mhm.
have been able to neutrally see and accept soul work and the purpose of being in this body at this time,
Mhm.
and surrender to it.
Mhm.
And that's kind of the same in that, like, I see things coming and things are happening. And I have found this ability to surrender in a way that I haven't been able to do before. Like, I can fully surrender and understand this is my soul work. Like, this is where I'm growing. This is
Mhm.
so uncomfortable because this is where I'm growing. Or my soul really wants to go through this. I'm in this physical body. So I have to come back into my body and execute it and move through it and feel it. But I've been able to see differently this year. And I think
Mhm.
it's the gift of this energy, of this time. It's so transformative. We're all transforming and growing in such a beautiful way. Like, I feel like we're becoming superhuman if we want to be.
Yeah.
And just being able to see from a new perspective of soul work, soul growth, soul evolvement. Does that make
Totally.
sense?
Yeah, and it's so important. Like, if something is bothering you, or a person, there's a situation or the energy, or because there's a lot of challenges right now, right? And we're all working through these. But sometimes we're trying to force, like, what are we going to do, or what should I do, or what should I say?
Yes.
But if we actually just change our attitude about it, just
Yeah.
like you said, oh, this is a learning, I'm going through this is my soul work, that kind of acceptance and changing our attitude then a lot of times the situation will completely change without us even doing anything. And like what you're saying in that
Yes.
surrender, right?
And
And I
also
think,
the surrender for the highest good. Like I used to push so hard of like, I want to control it to make it this way. I want things to turn out this way. I want things to turn out this way. If we
yep,
didn't learn in 2020 that we actually don't have that type of control,
yep,
it's being taught in 2021, I feel.
for sure. And then also, you know, sometimes these problems or challenges with that, like when we want to like figure it out, or we, you know, we try to rationalize it, or what, again, what do we do when we stop and when we invite like the magic in, right? When we
Mhm.
invite our guides in, the teachings, the pinnacle, like all these tools in, a lot of times those things end up taking care of our problems because
Yes.
they're working for our highest good, just like you said.
Yes.
So I think this is super important right now, and especially going into this Mercury retrograde, which we're going to talk about, because Mercury is going to be retrograde in the sign of Gemini. Mercury rules Gemini. This is all about the thoughts and our words and our voices and our communication and all of these things. So this is going to be a great time for us to kind of look at things in a different perspective, or kind of like, yeah, change how we see the event or we see the challenge, to see if we can shift that energy in a different way, what we're
I have
going
a
through.
question.
Yeah.
And this only came to me yesterday because I only have in the past few years started to learn astrology. I feel like I'm learning it so much more now. I can actually kind of read a chart now, just a little bit. And I understand just how the energy works in such a different way. But I haven't paid attention to these planets in signs until this year.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a Gemini sun, and Mercury goes retrograde around this time every year. Does it always go retrograde in Gemini and then in the winter in the same sign, or does it kind of move? Like,
It moves. Yep. And
okay,
it
I
goes through
thought so.
different, yeah, and it goes through different cycles. So right now, all the retrogrades, last year, the retrogrades were happening between air and water signs. And now the retrogrades are all in air signs, and then they'll
Okay.
go to water signs. So as Mercury goes through its orbit, it in its you know, travels, it will shift. Okay, so we'll have different times when it's in different signs, but it takes a lot of years to make those big shifts. Okay,
Okay.
so this year the Mercury retrograde is all in air signs. It's
Okay.
Mercury, it's in Aquarius. It was in Aquarius. It's about to be in Gemini. It'll be in Libra. Um, for example, the last set of seasons, it was right between the two signs, and then even before that, it was in water signs. So it does move. It does
Okay.
change in a slow rhythm depending on its orbit.
Okay.
Okay, so Mercury. When we think of Mercury, we have to think of the magician and the trickster. This is the Mercury, magician and trickster. And if we're thinking about this like duality, it's back and forth between the sky and the earth,
Mhm.
right? So our thoughts can be more practical, more in the body, more grounded, but our thoughts also, you know, more realistic, but our thoughts also can soar to the heavens and be creative and be an imaginative. This is the archetype of Mercury. Mercury is, you know, ruling, yes, our communication, it rules writing, our mental abilities, our mental telepathy. Mercury is the archetype of how we receive and give information, essentially. So when we're looking at Mercury in our chart, we're looking at what sign is it in, is the description. And this is kind of fun because every single reading I do, I already know or have a pretty good sense of how the communication is going to go based on my Mercury and the person's Mercury. You know, like where their sign, what sign it's in, pretty much. If someone's got a Mercury in Scorpio, I'm probably going to do most of the talking, even though I talk a lot. You know, Mercury in Scorpio tends to be a little bit more quiet. Like, you know, sometimes if I'm like someone's Mercury in Aries, oh, I'm going to listen actually way more because that person is going to have a lot of things to say about themselves. So this is what Mercury represents. It represents the communication. It also is about how we contract in the world, our connections in the world. Okay. So Mercury being this messenger of information, but it's also ruling things like social commerce, like buying and selling and our contracts and all of these things. This is what Mercury represents. Because Mercury is the traditional ruler of Gemini, then now we're going into this retrograde cycle and it's all the Gemini stuff, which is the same as Mercury. So this is like we're going into a period where we're going to be able to, I think, get some really great outside perspectives. So depending where everybody's at right now and kind of things going on in their life, this is going to be a lovely opportunity to stop, look outside the story, think about things differently, let yourself receive the messages. And one thing with Mercury is that it slows down. Okay. And energy feels slowed down. So why people talk about it as a review, all the rewords, is essentially Mercury moves 1 degree every day. It's like truck moving. Whenever I think of Mercury, I always picture the gears of a clock. Like those clock, like always it comes up, the gears in the clock. I always see that when I think of Mercury. So if the clock is like tick, 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 and like, let's say it's about to, it needs to be wound up and it starts to go really slow, and that's Mercury retrograde. Everything starts to slow its energetics. So this becomes a time of more internal processing, again, reviewing, understanding things. And the fun thing about talking now is that we're going to go through the dates so that all the listeners and everyone in the community can kind of like really pay attention and kind of track it.
It's so funny that you said Mercury is also about buying and selling. I had no idea. And I shared with you before we started recording just how kind of obsessed I am with cryptocurrency now, and how just this past week when Mercury went into Gemini, I made my first purchases, and I check that app more than I check Instagram, I think, watching the numbers. And I'm just like, it's just so exciting for me. And then also I've noticed people in my life just like coming in, talking to me about it. And it just, I mean, it's the time as well, like Age of Aquarius, and it's the time. But it's so funny that in the past week, that topic in my field has absolutely picked up. And Mercury went into Gemini, which is funny.
And all of the cryptocurrencies have tons of more publicity and more, there's a lot more people talking about all of this now, and especially things going up and down. That's been happening too. So when we look at the Mercury retrograde phase, we have to understand what it's doing. Okay. And I want to explain this really quick because this is like, it's important because there are 29 degrees in a sign. Okay. So Mercury gets to a certain degree that it will back up to. That is called the shadow. And I know you talk about like the shadow and feeling the energy, but this is clockwork. So Mercury will get to 16 degrees of Gemini on May 15th. What that means is that is the degree after it goes retrograde that it will back up to. So the shadow is so important to understand. This is the beginning of the slowdown.
Yes.
And inevitably that day, I always get messages, email, text, call from someone I hadn't talked to in 10 years. The shadow, you will feel the shadow when you pay attention. People will come back from the past, something will get rearranged, some kind of communication thing will happen. It's there. So May 15th is the introduction.
And I've mentioned now a couple of times because you've taught me this, and it is so bang on accurate every time, that that day is the day that you're gently introduced to the story that you're going to be working with and the learning that you're going to be receiving. And so I've encouraged our community now a couple of times to pay attention to their emotions that day, their messages, their reactions, their triggers, their overall experience. Still be present in your day and move through your day. Like, it's not like a day to stand off on the sidelines and be like,
Oh,
what's happening? Be present in your day. Just be aware. It's a day to just,
exactly.
and I mean, please be aware every day because that's how you receive your messages. But on that day, be aware. And it, even if it means just at the end of the day taking 5 minutes to reflect, like, what happened today? How did I feel? What came up? Was anything out of the ordinary? Was
Yes,
anything different for me? Maybe do a line activation if you're a little bit stuck. What was I feeling today? What did I need to
exactly.
learn from today? And write it down, and then just pay attention because it will reveal.
And will reveal. And now, so Mercury in retrograde in Gemini, that's for all of us, all energetically. Sometimes Mercury retrogrades are more intense depending on our chart, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where something where you go investigate your chart, and figure out, where is Gemini? Do I have any planets in Gemini? Where is that in my chart? So yes, Mercury retrograde for everyone in Gemini, but depending where Gemini is in your chart, and if you have planets in Gemini, the story is going to correspond to your cycle, right?
Mm-hmm.
We know this is going to be a big retrograde for you. You got a ton of Gemini in your chart.
A ton.
So we have the shadow, and we know then things start to slow down. So if we start to kind of like really push, we feel a little bit like we swim upstream.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because we're slowing the energy down. The station retrograde will be May 29th. That's when Mercury gets to 24 degrees of Gemini. So in the evening, that is the station day. And that's the day I call this, where astrologers call it more of the storm day. It's when Mercury is essentially suspended energetically and starts to move closer to the earth. And I always notice that the station days, to me, feel very surreal on those days. Like, things do feel a little bit suspended in time on the station.
Mm-hmm.
So we have the station, then we go into the retrograde cycle. We're in the retrograde all the way till June 22nd. That's the day that Mercury goes back to 16 degrees, which it was on May 15th, right? So we have it backing up, changing its energy, moving direct, and then we have the cool down. And the cool down of the retrograde, well, I can say the energy starts to cool down, but really what happens is that Mercury starts to gain its speed back. So a lot of times people also are like, oh yay, June 22nd, Mercury's direct, woo! I was like, yeah, but it's still not hardly moving. It's like,
Yeah, it's like that you enter into the integration period then of like,
exactly.
what did you learn over this whole time? What kind of messages did you receive, and how can you now integrate it into your life? I always take that last shadow as a gift because it's like, what did I not get yet? And sometimes it's
Exactly.
harsh for me. Like, sometimes it's
Yeah,
like, whoa, okay, I thought I integrated that, but I didn't. So now I'm going to move through it
exactly.
again to make sure I
Exactly.
get it.
And we say a lot of times too, when those lessons, we can leave the energy of what we learned with the cycle and not carry it on.
Yes.
So I liked that integration period is exactly that the shadow, the ending of that. It's a time to see, okay, well, what did I learn? Okay, if I didn't, okay, then what do I need to integrate? And then the shadow phase will end July 7th when Mercury goes past 24 degrees of Gemini. So if you have any planets between 16 and 24 of Gemini, that's Mercury retrograde is going to be connecting deeply to that in your chart. For me, I have my node of karma which is pretty close. And it's all happening in my fourth house, my house of home and family. And I'm about to go see my sister and my mom. And I know that
Mm-hmm.
whole is going to happen, that whole retrograde period. I haven't seen them for a while. So I can anticipate a lot of family stuff coming up because it's in my fourth house and it's connecting to my node. And so you'll get a sense when you know where it is in your chart of what's going on. And I think for you, it's your 11th house, correct?
Yes.
Which is community.
Yes. And it's interesting because it really, for me, like holds the hands of the eclipse season. And I had this magical day the other day. It was May the 5th, actually, between May the 4th and May the 5th, which was, as we're recording this, yesterday and the day before.
Mm-hmm.
I was given all the lessons that I've been working with since last summer that have literally come up. The theme of it has come up for every single opportunity that I've moved through something challenging. And those lessons are give myself time and space to process and do not respond from fear.
Mm-hmm.
That's the themes. And I was able to reflect back to last summer, even all of last year, where I did not give myself time and space to process and I responded from fear. And then I look at my life since last summer, at every experience that has been challenging or painful or caught me off guard. And I did not give myself time and space to process, or another person, but myself as well. And I
Mm-hmm.
responded from fear. And
Yeah.
so the fact that this Mercury retrograde is also so close and happening during eclipse season,
Yep.
I know exactly what I'm working with, but I feel as though I have grown so much within this that now I feel so confident moving into these experiences. I don't have any fear at all because I'm like, oh, my lesson is to not respond from fear. And so
Yeah.
let's just do this and give myself the time and space to process and give myself the room to experience it and respond from love. And I've noticed within my own energy, anytime I'm in fear, everything feels big and scary. And as
Mm-hmm.
soon as I switch over into the love and the surrender, the messages come in, the comfort is there, the alignment is there, like, and it just feels like I'm moving through it with ease, which is what the Pentacles say. When you're in alignment with your messages, it's like you're swimming with ease. Swimming, how did they say it? Swimming in the current with ease. If it feels like, or when you're not in alignment with your messages, then it feels like you're thirsty forever. And
Right.
yeah,
Ease and grace. And that's evolution of your consciousness, right? And
yes,
that's what we're all here doing on earth. We're
we
all
are.
here loving, caring, nurturing, and then evolving our consciousness.
And
Like
when
what
you look
all you're
back
doing.
at it, yeah, when you look back at it, you can really track how much you have done and how much growth you have experienced. And it's, of course, not linear, it goes up and down, up and down. But then I feel it's encouragement to go through these universal activations, these transits, these experiences. It's exciting. It makes it exciting.
Yeah. And I think that's so beautiful too, because we all have to be gentle with ourselves right now.
Yes.
Yeah, we have to be intense. And I hear you too. Like moments that I encounter fear, if I'm able to shift that very quickly into love, it's so incredible how fast I can embody the love.
Yes.
And then it's like also like, wow, I can really stay in that moment of fear. And then it can kind of feel like a big wave, right?
Yes.
And if we can kind of catch ourselves at that the beginning of that wave and say, ooh, this is intense, it's challenge, but how can I shift that into a more loving way?
Yes.
It's amazing how quickly we can move into those states.
Absolutely. And this may sound very abstract for someone listening, being like, well, what is fear? What is love? What is this? What is that? Like, how do I even manage that? And I had an experience the other day in the car where I woke up and I was in fear. And what I mean by being in fear is that I felt some anxious thoughts within me. I felt as though, oh, I didn't do that right. I didn't respond to that right. This person's going to think this of me now. I wish I could go back and do this differently. And I caught myself in a loop where I was just thinking about this over and over and over. And I'm driving and I'm thinking about it. And I can feel my chest getting a little bit tight, like that uncomfortable feeling where we're almost creating problems and scenarios in our minds where it most likely isn't the case at all, but we're going over it in our minds. And then I reminded myself, this is my ego. My ego is keeping me here. It's comfortable. It's comfortable to be in this pattern of drama, essentially. This pattern of, I wish I could do this differently. What does this person think? I wish I said this differently. Oh, I'm a Scorpio South Node. Like, it's comfortable for me to be in that cycle of pattern of that drama. And I'm like, but how does my soul want to grow within this? Because right now I'm in fear. The ego keeps me here. This is where it wants me to be because it doesn't have to grow. It knows it's going to survive here. So how do I grow past this? And I'm like, right, I just love myself. I just completely shift my mindset and actively decide to think something else. And in that moment, I just said, I have compassion for myself. I have a compassion for this situation, and I'm going to love through it. And that's it. And I noticed my energy turn so quickly, so quickly. And that is how I internalized coming from fear to love, noticing where my ego is keeping me and then how to move into love. And it starts with love for yourself and grows into love for whatever the experience is that you're moving through. It takes strength and focus and awareness and intention, but you can switch your energy that quickly.
Yes. Oh my God. I love everything you just said. Seriously, like this is it. This is like how we deal in 2021 is we have to work with this so that we can come back to that place, because this is where all the power is for ourselves, is that self-love and that connection and being able to have control over our own energy, even though there's so many things and outside things and challenges and this that come into our field. We have the power again of like, how do we handle it? Sometimes when I have those moments too, like when you say and they like to come like right before I'm falling asleep for me. Like I'm so peaceful and I'm so this, and then something pops in and I'm like, oh boy, here we go. And I have this thought and this or that. And I like to just say the word love. I just say the word love. I say love, 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 love. And then really after 1 or 2 minutes, I forget about what I was thinking. I'm like, just like, it's so when our attention is so important, like where we place our energy, and our attention. And there are a lot of, different tools that we all can cultivate to help shift those states, And I love what you say about just recognizing the part of the ego and how it's conditioned, or it's used to it, or it loves to kind of be in that realm, or the different facets of energy around that. And then that moment of awareness is already the shift. The tension more comes from when we deny it exists, right? Then we bury it, and then the unconscious is going to surface it somewhere. So the awareness of just that, oh wow, I'm in a loop and this is intense, is already helping to shift it.
I am so excited to share with you that the soul workshop I've been talking about on here for months is now available for pre-order. It's called Activate the Line, Know Your Soul. And in 6 videos, I will guide you deep into soul awareness so that you can see the dimension hopping, time spanning ways your soul is speaking to you. This is revolutionary work, and it is so important to understand yourself on a soul level as we move through this very transformative time. You will learn where in the sky your soul is from, how your gifts and purpose can help you heal and evolve in this life, the soul agreements and contracts you have with people in this life, who is your soul family, how to work with energy in your physical body, what your dreams are telling you about your soul, and so much more. And we have a special discount for you as well. Until May 31st, when you purchase the pre-sale, you will receive 30% off the regular price of this workshop. Buy it today and then receive access to the workshop as soon as it launches on June the 1st. Open up to a new dimension of you and see yourself like never before. Learn more at alnwithin.com.
So, okay,
Eclipses.
yeah, eclipses, here they come.
Let's talk about what eclipses are, in case a very, very, very quick summary of what an eclipse is, because it's this really amazing event that happens in the sky, but energetically, so much happens as well.
Yeah. Okay. So eclipse. An eclipse occurs when the moon gets between the earth and the sun, right? And we have a solar eclipse. We have the lunar eclipse when the earth stands between the sun and the moon, and the earth's shadow darkens the moon. These are energetic portals and energetic changes in the atmosphere. Mm-hmm. So if you would, look at like NOAA or the National Oceanography, the atmospheric pressure changes on Earth. When we have something like the sun being blocked, we go offline. The sun's codes and information go offline. And when the energy moves, then the sun comes back online. So we always have new moons, we always have full moons, but eclipses are energetic charged points of energy, essentially, that happen every 6 months, right? So every 6 months. And why they're important astrologically, because they're connected to the moon's nodes, right? So we have these points, which are the moon's nodes, and they're 2 points which the orbit of the moon intersects the ecliptic, essentially, which is the band around the earth of it traveling. So the eclipses happen when the sun and the moon are aligning with the orbital nodal plane. So when we have a new moon and a full moon every month, they're not connecting to the orbital plane of the nodes of the moon. When we have an eclipse, it's because it's on that axis. And that's when we have this dynamic energy where the sun gets blocked out, or, the earth blocks the sun's energy to the moon. And these times always through astrology have looked at as really important windows in energetics. So in our current day, eclipses are supercharged new moon, supercharged full moon. That it really does depend in our life where the eclipses fall in our chart in regards to how affected are we. Okay. So we have this new moon in Taurus coming up, right? May 11th. We have the new moon in Taurus. The next lunation will be an eclipse. So the new moon in Taurus on May 11th opens the portals and energy, because the next lunation is going to be eclipse. So that's when we talk about that's eclipse season, right? Eclipse season, we have a new moon. The next lunation will be an eclipse. So the new moon on the 11th opens the energetics to the eclipse season.
I just can't wait for this new moon. And by the time this episode comes out, it will have already happened. But I feel so excited for it. Like, I just think it's going to be such a beautiful experience. And yes, it's like the gateway. It like opens up this door for transformation on a whole new level, a supercharged level.
Yeah. And Taurus has become one of my favorite.
Mine too.
Because because nature and flowers and energy. And so it's really about making sure you're very connected to the earth and connected to that energy. So we have this new moon. Then on May 26th, we'll see the full moon eclipse. The sun will be in Gemini, the moon will be in Sagittarius, and they will be at 5 degrees. So that's when eclipses have more essential activation in our life. Is where does that fall in our chart? Okay. So we're all feeling the supercharged energy of it. The full moon wants to reveal, it wants to bring to light, it wants to release. But if 5 degrees of Sag and Gemini hold a really important part in your chart, then the eclipse is going to have a very strong interaction. And I always say astrology can be internal, it can be external, it can be both. Because a lot of times when I'm working with people and I'll be like, oh, well, what was going on? And they'll be like, I don't know, nothing big happened. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh no, that's when I signed up to take this class, which changed this. And I'm like, yeah, okay. So this is like, it could be an internal energy where we see something different. We have huge aha, we get downloads, we connect to the line, we get energy that comes through. Or it can be specific events where things happen to help move us along or to help change. So the full moon eclipse is about the letting go, about the illumination, about the release of energy. On June 10th, we have the new moon eclipse where the sun and the moon join together at the sun in Gemini at 19 degrees. So the new moon eclipse is the new energy, the new activation, the new intentions, the new energy. And again, new energy related to where does that fall in our chart? You know, where is that? In what house, what area, what planets? And then what happens is we close the eclipse season with the following full moon, which is June 24th. Because that full moon, the sun will be in Cancer, the moon will be in Capricorn, but that will close this window of energetic activation, heightened activation at that time. And interesting enough, in my chart, Sag and Gemini, 5 degrees plays a big role. It is the beginning of my 10th house and the beginning of my 4th house. It's all about home and career. And so every about 18 years or a little over 18 years, we'll have the same eclipse cycle. Okay. And this is called the Saros cycle. So eclipses run in all these cycles because 18 and a half years ago, the North Node was in Gemini, the South Node was in Sagittarius. So we're coming back to energetically stories that go back to 2001 and 2002. So for me, no surprise, 2001, 2002, all those eclipses and energetically change and activation in my career house and in my house of home. That's when my husband and I left Seattle and we moved to New York City.
Oh, wow.
And that was a whole process of illumination, understanding, and seeing, and then intention of what we wanted. So here I am now, a whole Saros cycle later, and the eclipses are in Gemini and Sag. And here we are trying to decide, where do we want to live next?
Yeah, that's amazing. You've completed a cycle.
And after, visiting quite a few places in the last year and kind of deciding, it's interesting that we both have come to the conclusion we're ready to go back home to New York.
Are you really?
Yeah, we're ready to go back home.
That's the first I've heard of that. Everyone gets to hear the news at the same time as me.
Go back home and go back there for a little bit. With nature still thrown in, still a little bit more escapes upstate and being and going places like where we can be in nature. But, we've gone to a lot of different places, and so many in this country is so beautiful, and
so many places
to go, and beautiful towns and people. And through this whole journey, we were kind of letting ourselves be guided to what's next. And now it's like, I think, yeah, what's next is we're going to go back for a little bit. And so it's interesting because this eclipse cycle goes back to all of these themes back in 2001 and 2 about where we wanted to live and where we were going to go and what that meant. So in that energy, I was able to be okay with it instead of being fearful. I mean, I will say there are moments of, oh my God, what are we going to do? Right? Of course. But I knew, because of where my nodes are and where they were and that whole story, that things are going to work themselves out.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. They always do. And when you're in that flow and you're following your messages and you're surrendering, as we said at the beginning, to the soul work, it does all sort out. It's when you're putting up resistance and trying to control it. And I mean, I have known your experience since 2020 and how you have literally just like flowed from place to place and you haven't known where you're going next. And it's been so interesting, but that's also been a learning for you as someone who liked to plan and liked to have everything organized and booked and arranged. And it was a huge growing
Oh,
experience for you.
sure. Oh, yeah. My Mars in Taurus and my Venus in Capricorn, planned, arranged. And it's like, I just braced my full Piscean energy of like, okay, and what's next? Like, and that's like, balance of that energy. But I can see how now these eclipses will help then set a new 19-year cycle, which I think really means like splitting time between the city and nature.
Yeah, a lot more balance.
And do you remember for you, 2001, 2002?
I was in grade 10 and grade 11.
Yeah.
So
Young.
young. Um, it would make a lot more sense for 2003 because I was graduating from high school and I feel like I'm beginning a whole new journey right now. It's what it
Mhm.
feels like. And so that would make a lot more sense. But 2001, 2002, I mean, grade 10, grade 11, I was really young.
Yeah.
So
And those
I was,
things are, yeah, when we look at those cycles, we look at that period, we would also see a lot of things that were just kind of going on with the family around us at that time
yeah.
too. And as we get older in our cycles, like I say, fine wine as we age, then it gets really fun. So you're going to
Yeah.
see everything you're going through now. And then in 19 years, a whole nother cycle with that story too. And
And
that's what happens when we get older. And sometimes I just love when I get to talk to somebody who's in their 70s because I'm like,
yes.
oh, and then what happened here and what happened here and what happened here. It's
The
so much
patterns and the connections. I love it so much. And speaking of patterns and connections, I want to briefly touch on the planet of Saturn because I know we've talked about eclipses, we've talked about Mercury retrograde. That's going over what's happening now and for the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Um, I had mentioned on my Instagram one day that I was giving a lot of love to people who are going through their Saturn return in 2020, 2021, 2022, just because this is such a transformative time for us as a collective. And then on a micro level, Saturn return is a really transformative experience as well. I mean, so many different transits are very transformative, but Saturn return is a really
Mhm.
transformative experience. And I was surprised by how many people wrote in, and I did a little poll of like, do you know what this is? And like 7% or something of people didn't know what it was. So,
Oh,
can
wow.
you briefly just explain to us what Saturn
Yeah.
is as a planet, how it teaches us, how it shows up, not just in the Saturn return, but
Yeah.
I mean, I have a Saturn transit right now, and a lot of people are working with Saturn right now. Someone told me Saturn's ruling the cosmos right now because it entered into Aquarius, and we're all learning so much. So, can
Mhm.
you just tell us what Saturn does and how we learn from this brilliant teacher?
Yeah, exactly. Lovely name for it. Be kind to Saturn because look out, Lord of Karma is coming after you. Okay, so Saturn, wherever Saturn is in our chart, whatever sign it's in, whatever house is it in, is where one of our points of evolving is. Okay. So Saturn as an archetype, as a pattern of energy, represents our structures. That's why it's always connected to like our teeth and our skin. Like this is our structures. It's our work planet. It's about our discipline. It's about stability. We hear a lot of times people say it's limitation, contraction, concentration. This is the energy of Saturn. So in your chart, whatever sign it's in, whatever house is in, shows us where there is work to evolve. Because Saturn has this kind of duality, since it's like a double-edged sword. Like it's like one part of Saturn is this incredible authority, your self-authority, your autonomy, you're the teacher, you have the wisdom. But then at the other side, Saturn talks about or speaks to some of our own deepest fears. Mm-hmm. So we master the fears of Saturn through hard work and discipline. Okay. Mm-hmm. And like, that's how and wherever it is in our chart, it's one of the points of evolution. Our nodes are a huge point of evolution, our Saturn and our Pluto. Those are like three of the top things when I'm looking at a chart to see what is this soul here to work through and evolve. Okay. So Saturn as the stability, the authority. Saturn takes 29 and a half years to return to circle the sun and to return to the place it was when we were born. So everyone will have their Saturn return at the end of their 20s, but it becomes a process because your Saturn return will begin when Saturn enters the sign that your natal Saturn is in. That is the beginning of your Saturn return, which will last about 2.5 years. And to think about it this way, Saturn, because it is about our foundation and it's about our structures in life, as we are growing up, when we're young, we have our ancestry structures, we have our family structures, we have our school structures, we have societal structures, we have our friends structure, we have all these different structures of how we see things and how we have our foundation. When we enter our Saturn return, this is the opportunity for us to slow down and look at what works for us and what doesn't work anymore. So what it becomes is a period of maturing. Okay. It's a time to mature, to take responsibility, step into greater responsibility of your soul's plan. So sometimes people talk about Saturn and there's this like very kind of scary Saturn. It's hard. Yeah, it is hard because it's asking us to evolve and do the work that our divine soul already planned for us to evolve through.
Mm-hmm. Kelsey's going through her Saturn return right now. And last week she said, which I just loved hearing her say it when she shared it with me. So I asked her to share it with the community, that she has surrendered to Saturn for all the lessons that it will bring. And she has surrendered so beautifully. I mean, I know the stuff she's going through on her personal level because we talk a lot, because she works for me and we're friends as well. And the way that she surrenders to it and is just like, I'm here. Saturn is a vibe. I'm doing this. Saturn is a vibe, has been inspiring to me because Saturn is having a huge role in my chart right now as well. And I'm just like, I'm here for the discipline and the lessons and the growth and the learning. And I'm surrendering to this because on the other side of it, I'll have grown so much if I resist it, I miss this opportunity of growth. And then it's just even more uncomfortable going forward.
Exactly. Patience.
It's hard, but it's beautiful.
Perseverance. Yeah. Yes. And sometimes these intense experiences, have, very painful expressions, but it always is that learning and the continuing of the effort to work through it, that once we get to the other side of it, because Saturn will move on, then we're like, whoa, huge growth. Right. And we just like, wow, that was a period that, whoa, I really went through this, but this is what I learned and this is how I grew. So Saturn return, everybody will go through that at the end of their 20s. And then in another 29 and a half years, we'll have a second Saturn return, 58, 59. And then if we get to be lucky enough, we'll get a third Saturn return at 88. So we will only have 3 Saturn returns through a whole lifespan.
Mm-hmm.
So this becomes a time for us really to grow up. And essentially, after we have our first Saturn return, I always say you become an adult. This is when you actually know who you are, you know what you want, you've separated from some of the things that the family taught you or society, and you say, this doesn't work, that doesn't work, this is what I like. So it's about these structures and your foundation. And if we're kind of far off our path for what we planned, it can be a little bit, intense. It can be kind of a kick in the butt to say, hey, you got to stick with it. You got to work with it and kind of correct that energy, in that way. Talking about that time just now with the eclipses back in 2002, that happened to be also exactly when my Saturn return was at the same time.
Oh,
Those
wow.
eclipses were happening. And just to give a quick story of a Saturn return, when Saturn entered the sign of Gemini, which is where my Saturn is, my husband and I both knew we didn't want to live in Seattle anymore. I didn't know this at the time, but this was the exact moment, essentially, where we came to this conclusion that we wanted to leave Seattle, was when Saturn entered Gemini, because I went back after I started learning astrology and tracked everything and was like, oh, wow. Then we had to work with, well, where were we going to move? We were going to move to LA. We were going to move to New York. We were at all these back and forth. And then 9/11 happened.
Mm-hmm.
And we decided to hold off for a little bit. But as it turned out, Saturn was exactly aligned to my Saturn, because my Saturn's late in Gemini, late degrees, the day we arrived in New York City in October 31st, 2002.
October 31st, so in
2002. So it's a process of energy. So all these people now going through their Saturn return, your Saturn return started, if your Saturn's in Aquarius, your Saturn return started last year, March 22nd, when Saturn moved into Aquarius.
Mm-hmm.
Then Saturn retrograded back into Capricorn, and it was in Capricorn from July 2nd till about December 18th. And then Saturn went back into Aquarius, and now it stays there till March 2023. So it's a process of growth, a process of evolution. And to embrace it is about doing the work. Really, Saturn loves it when you roll up your sleeves and you do the work.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Saturn is a vibe. Kelsey's quote.
It's the vibe. And then, like you said, Saturn's always moving around in our chart, and depending where it is where we're going to see the growth and the structures change and the energy move as it goes through different parts in our chart. So that's why when you, start to get friendly with your chart or have a reading or go deeper, you really start to track the energy or work with an astrologer, then there's so much insight and understanding of like what's going on.
Our messages come from the universe, from our Akashic record, which is in the Pleiades, but the Pleiades are in the sky. And that's where all of this energy is happening. And so everything is just kind of combined and comes through and affects us personally. And this is why I love astrology so much, because I receive my messages all the time when I talk to you, Leslie. I'm like, this is what's going on in my life. This is what I'm feeling. This is what I'm thinking. This is what I'm going through. And you're like, you just read your chart, because my messages and how I'm receiving them and how I'm taking action on them and moving through it and experiencing everything is exactly what's going on in my chart. But my chart just gives me even more insight into why something's happening, even more insight into how to move through something, which I already have. I just find that it's a tool. It's like I have these messages, I have this guidance. Here's a tool, almost like a guidebook on how to move through it in a more aligned way.
And that's the total gift of astrology.
Yeah. Last but not least, the wonderful event that we're already feeling, I feel it majorly, that is coming on May the 15th, no, May the 13th, I believe.
Yep,
May the
13.
13th, Jupiter's going into Pisces. This is exciting. What does
It is
this mean for you?
exciting. Jupiter loves to be in Pisces. So Jupiter stays in a sign for 12 to 13 months. Okay.
Mhm.
So Jupiter is the sky god. Jupiter is the wisdom. Jupiter is knowledge. Jupiter is expansion. In our chart, it shows our joy, our confidence. Jupiter is more of a benefit energy when we're looking at astrology. It's about expansion.
Mhm.
So Jupiter has been in Aquarius. They moved into Aquarius right after Saturn. So we had that big conjunction, remember, of Jupiter and Saturn last solstice.
Mhm.
And then it went pretty quickly through Aquarius. Now, on the 13th in the evening, Jupiter is going to move into the sign of Pisces. It's only going to get to 2 degrees of Pisces before it goes retrograde and then goes back into Aquarius at the end of July. In October, Jupiter will go direct, and then it will move back into Pisces at the end of this year, December 28th, for half of next year. Okay. So it's about a whole 12 to 13th month cycle, but depending on its movement, like I was saying with Mercury, sometimes it can go back and forth between 2 signs, which is what it's doing now. Pisces is all about the beauty, the creativity, music, art, romance, psychic energy, empathetic energy, our intuitive gifts, our dream life. So this is something I think that people are really going to feel as a little bit of a relief from all the intense stuff that's been going on the last year. Jupiter in Pisces wants to bring more magic into your life. Let it
Just
in.
such a gift. Yes.
Let it in. There will be, heightened more psychic awareness, creativity. So I think it's important to kind of, well, first of all, pay attention around the 13th, 14th when you get up, how you're feeling with this energy. We're going to have it for a little bit, work with it, and then it's going to pick up again later this year and into next year. Connecting to our ancestors, our guides, the line, our intuition, healing wounds on many levels. Jupiter in Pisces wants to work to help heal things. Really, I think it's a lovely time to, kind of take some more of our spiritual practices and our ceremonies seriously, really pay attention to your spiritual life, your creative life, the mystic life. And I think we're going to see a lot more compassion just all around, like more compassion, more like caring, kindness, connecting energy, which I think we've all been through so much this last year is nice, and that's why I say let that magic in, let that creative energy in.
Mm-hmm. I'm so excited for it. I can feel it already.
Me too.
It feels, yeah, just like warm water. Like it just feels so comfortable.
And the last time Jupiter was in Pisces was in 2010, in that year span. And this is really important for me in my chart because I'm a Pisces. My sun's in Pisces, moon Pisces, Mercury in Pisces. I got a lot of Pisces in my chart. But 2009 is when I had more of my own spiritual awakening and was gifted an astrology reading and became obsessed. But 2010 is when I took my first lessons and my study from my teacher. And so I'm coming back to a 12-year Jupiter cycle with my astrology practice and my journey. And I look at this time and thinking like, wow, 12 years. Okay, that's a long, like, wow, but it's gone by quick. But all of the things that I've learned and all of the amazing people that I've connected to and this this work that I love to do. It's been incredible. So it does feel for me like a really coming of home, because it's connecting to so much in my chart, but it also picks up on the cycle back to the period when I first started my journey really with astrology in this life.
Yeah. 2010 was a huge year for me too. Like I ended a relationship that really broke my heart, but it was also such a beautiful relationship that I have nothing but loving things to say about it. And then I went to Sri Lanka on a
Oh,
whim on my credit
wow.
card.
Oh my
I could
God.
not afford it, but I was like, I need to get out
Wow.
of here. My brother was living there at the time. And so I booked a trip to Sri Lanka and went and traveled around the country with him for 3 weeks. I climbed a mountain I went on my birthday. Did I climb the mountain on my birthday? I think I did. I can't remember, but there's this mountain there called Sripada, and you can climb it in the middle of the night. And by the time you get up, as you're going up the mountain, like you're going up through the clouds and the sun is rising, it's so beautiful. And then you get to the summit and you watch the sun fully rise, and then you climb back down. And I had told myself that all of my emotional problems I was dealing with them as I climbed up. And then by the time I got down, I was going to be sorted. And for the most part, I was. I mean, there was quite a
I
lot to still
love,
move through.
yeah.
And I had quit a lot of things that were not good for me, like smoking cigarettes and things that were not good for me. Like I was like, I'm done. Like coming down the mountain, I'm done. Like I'm starting a whole new thing. I'm having healthy relationships. I'm not staying in friendships that I don't feel I'm treated well. I'm not going to be abusing my body anymore from like smoking cigarettes and drinking too much alcohol. Like I'm going to get really clear on this, and I'm 25. I'm going to get really clear on how I'm treating myself. I started taking yoga a lot more seriously. I started
Mhm.
really like jumping into becoming vegan because I was like on the fence about that. Like I was just really, I felt so clear. It was such a major moment. And then later that year I met Ben, like just
Oh,
a couple of months later. It was a big year, 2010, like
wow.
a lot of transformation. And I owe it to that mountain. Like I really feel like that mountain and I had a moment.
Yes. Oh my God, I haven't heard that story before. I love it. So
Yeah.
this is like, yeah, inviting the Jupiter and Pisces, inviting all the mystical in,
Yeah.
the creative, the all the Piscean stuff, like the, listening, the inner guidance, the meditation, the insight. We're going to see this expand. And I think like what you mentioned too a little bit before about all the things that we've gone through, I think we're ready. I'm ready for Jupiter
Yeah.
and Pisces to like bring more heart
Absolutely.
expansion and more play and more creative energy into our life. Since it's been
Yes.
a lot of thoughts and things and challenges. So I invite everyone just to let the magic in.
Let the magic in. I love that. That's the mantra. Let the magic in.
Yay!
Thanks for being here, Leslie. This was
Oh,
so
thanks for
fun.
having me. Um, I always love our conversations. And I love we could just share them with all these amazing people who I've connected to. And I know feel like I say this every time, but just like the whole community, just so many beautiful souls, so many
So
souls
many.
doing their work, showing up every day. It's so inspiring. It really is. And when I get to talk to all these different people from all over and just hear their stories and hear what they're going through, but also the incredible realizations they had and what they've done. It's just like, yeah, every day it's so inspiring. And with astrology every day, I'm just blown away
I know. Me too.
by all of it. I'm just like, wow, so that's what happened, It's so cool.
It's so magical. Every time, like when I get messages and I write them down and I connect them, and then I look at the astrology and I can't even understand. Like my mind is blown every day. This is the magic in my life where I just keep it's I don't have words. I'm just so excited by it every single day because I'm like, of course, of course, of course, alignment, of course. And
Oh my,
even I've talked about this on the podcast recently. Even when we make decisions and we follow through on messages that feel like we're so out of alignment, and it feels like, wow, I'm like down this path that I thought I was led here. Like I thought my messages led me here. And if you believe that, they most likely did. They led you through something that is going to bring you tremendous growth. Like your messages aren't going to just bring you down this path of like no work, no challenge, nothing. Like we are being divinely guided in alignment through this soul work that we have to do. And the chart just shows us where that is. Where's Saturn right now? Like it just shows you the work you have to do. Your messages are going to walk you right into that. And so anyways, I could keep going, but
no, but this is beautiful. And that part of it is really just that trust, right?
yes, the surrender and the trust.
Surrender and the trust. All right. I love it. Leave it on that note. Surrender, trust, let the magic in.
I hope that you enjoyed my conversation with Leslie and that you were able to take some inspiration away for these next couple of weeks and that you feel a little bit more prepared. Maybe you have a little bit more knowledge, more insight into yourself of what you're going to be moving through. And if you want to take it a little deeper, I have some line activation questions and journal prompts for you. I absolutely love seeing your photos on Instagram of these line activation questions and journal prompts, either photos of you doing them or photos of the journal afterwards, or where you're doing them or where you're doing your line activation. I just love seeing it. So thank you so much for sharing them with me. I definitely repost some of them. I don't repost all of them because I don't see all of them sometimes, but I love, love, love when you share them with me. So please share them this week and I will make an effort to see them all and repost them all in stories. I'm so excited to connect with you in that way. So the line activation questions for today are: how can I surrender to my Mercury retrograde and eclipse season learning? And the second is: how can I let go and let the magic into my life? If you have never done a line activation before, I will leave a link to a video tutorial on how to do one. They're super simple, super easy, free. You can do it anytime, anywhere. And I recommend that you begin doing line activations every day to strengthen your connection to your messages, strengthen your intuition, especially during this time when we are being opened up for more messages. Your line activations will absolutely support you through this time. And now your journal prompts to take this deeper. I can feel myself growing and transforming by. And the second, I will shift my thinking from fear to love by. Remember to write down everything that comes through for you for line activations, everything that you think of in your journaling. Really just let go, almost like you're closing your eyes and letting the pen move for you, like you're not even actively participating. You're just allowing the thoughts to flow through. I never thought that I could do automatic writing. Like it was something that I didn't really know how to surrender to. But recently I just do it all the time. I open the Akashic Records and I just put the pen on the paper and my hand just goes. And it's such a new way of channeling for me. I'm not used to it at all. It's literally like, it's a brand new practice, but I'm really enjoying it. So I invite you to do the same, either in the records or out of the records with your line activations. It's exciting. It's exciting to see what comes through. And that is all that I have for you today. I will be back here next week for a Q&A episode. So please go to thelinepodcast.com and record some new juicy questions for me to answer. You can ask anything at all. I love connecting with you in that way. I love receiving your notes, your voice notes, and hearing where you're from in the world and choosing some commonly asked questions and some interesting questions to share with you. And so until then, I'm sending you all of my love and gratitude and highest blessings. Have a beautiful week ahead.